Welcome back to the deep dive. We are here to distill these really complex market analyses into the knowledge you need. Basically, we're your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. And today, we are taking a deep dive into an East African market that's, well, it's defined by a pretty profound paradox: Burundi.
It really is an essential study in contrast. The iGaming market analysis we've been looking at, it reveals this genuinely nascent but also rapidly evolving landscape.
Right.
We're looking at a true frontier market. The potential for growth is just immense. But the operational realities, I'm talking about infrastructure, regulatory clarity, they demand, well, extreme caution.
And that's our mission today. We are cutting straight to the core. We want to understand the legal framework, that demographic tsunami really that's fueling the growth, and of course the cold, hard costs and risks of actually entering the market.
Yeah.
We just want to give you the most concise yet comprehensive view of this really unique market.
And, for some context on all this data we're about to get into.
Yeah, that's a good point. Where does this all come from?
We should probably mention, we are the Gambling Databases research team. This is what we do. We're a group that's really dedicated to these in-depth analyses of the global iGaming landscape.
Perfect.
So in each country report, we're exploring key things like local regulations, taxation, what the player experience is like, operator conditions, emerging trends.
The whole picture.
The whole picture. Our goal is just to provide a clear, data-driven understanding of how the gambling industry actually functions in each market and, what makes it unique.
And the data here, it immediately highlights that contradiction you mentioned. I mean, just look at the key indicators from the executive summary.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking a population projected to hit 11 million by 2025, but it's operating with a very, very modest GDP of, $3.2 billion?
Right.
But then you see a competitive gross gaming revenue, or GGR, tax rate of 15%, and an average revenue per user, the ARPU, sitting at about $12 a month.
And that's where the paradox is. It's built right into the forecast. The source projects a significant 12% compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, through 2030.
12% is huge.
It's massive.
Yeah.
And that's driven almost entirely by that huge youthful population. But, and it's a big but, that growth has to overcome a major infrastructural hurdle. Internet penetration right now is only 23%.
Wow.
So it's a classic, leapfrog scenario. Growth is totally reliant on bypassing those constraints, and that's why the strategy here has to be so specialized.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's jump straight into Section 1 then. Navigating this regulatory tightrope in a market that just hasn't fully caught up to the digital age.
Well, the current legal status is described as partially regulated. The foundation is the 2018 Gambling Act, but the key thing is that act was written mostly for land-based activities.
So physical casinos, betting shops.
Exactly. Physical casinos, slot machine halls, retail sports betting outlets, things like that.
Which leaves the entire digital space.
Where?
Exactly.
It leaves online gambling squarely in a regulatory gray area. I mean, the crucial detail here is there are no specific legislative acts that address digital platforms, not online casinos, not mobile sports books, nothing. And that absence, that lack of a formal license, it raises really significant, just undeniable legal uncertainties for any foreign company looking to get in.
Uncertainty is putting it mildly. So if an operator can only get a license that's really built for land-based ops, what does the source say the risk profile actually is? What's the worst-case scenario you need to budget for in this gray area?
The analysis points to two big risks. First, there's the risk of punitive regulatory change.
Right.
Because there's no framework, the government could really at any time introduce a prohibitive law or some crazy tax structure with almost no warning.
Okay, so total unpredictability. What's the second risk?
The risk of local prosecution.
Yeah.
Now, the regulator is mostly focused on controlling unlicensed local operators, the black market.
Right.
But a really visible foreign operator could easily become a target. You could face huge fines, or, in theory, your service could be seized if they rush new legislation through. The government wants control, so predictability is just very low.
That is the textbook definition of a high-risk frontier investment. So, okay, if an operator accepts that risk, what are the formal steps for getting a license through the Burundi National Gambling Board?
The process is, it's rigorous and it's slow. It involves a lot of technical and financial evaluations, and it typically takes a minimum of 4 to 6 months.
And the cost.
The fees are pretty substantial for a market this size. You're looking at anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000, and that depends on the scope of what you want to do.
That seems manageable for a major player, but the operational constraints, they sound much tougher. Tell us about the mandatory requirements for foreign companies.
This is where localization isn't just a good idea, it's mandatory. Foreign companies have to establish a local office and, critically,
Yeah.
appoint a local authorized representative,
Someone on the ground.
someone on the ground with significant operational oversight. But maybe the biggest hurdle is the foreign ownership restriction. The sources are clear that there are restrictions limiting non-residents from holding majority control.
So you can't even fully own your own operation. You are mandated to find a local partner to hold the majority stake. Does the source say why that's so important to the government?
Oh, absolutely. It's all about ensuring local benefit and, guaranteeing governmental oversight.
Okay.
By mandating local majority ownership, the government makes sure capital and jobs stay in the country. And it means there's always a locally accountable person if issues come up, which bypasses the slow process of dealing with international HQs.
So it's not just a rule, it fundamentally dictates your entry strategy.
It has to be a joint venture. There's no other way.
That sets the stage. So beyond ownership, what about ongoing compliance, especially things like player safety?
The compliance is actually modeled on stricter international standards, even though the digital law isn't there yet. Operators have to implement really rigorous age verification, robust Know Your Customer or KYC procedures, and comprehensive anti-money laundering or AML measures.
So they're building the safety net first?
It seems like it. And they're also mandated to have self-exclusion systems and display responsible gambling info really prominently.
That's actually pretty forward-thinking, building the safety foundations before the big growth.
Exactly. And on the financial side, transparency is completely non-negotiable. Operators have to submit monthly transaction logs, quarterly tax remittance reports, and full annual financial audits.
Wow.
It's a high-compliance environment. It's designed to prevent financial crime, and it demands sophisticated reporting from day one.
Okay, that gives us a clear picture of the risk and regulation. Now let's shift to Section 2, which is really the engine room of all this projected growth,
Yeah.
demographics and the unique digital behavior here.
Its market is it's a real anomaly because of its youth. Burundi's population is 11 million, and it has one of the lowest median ages in the world. It's around 18 years old.
18.
18, and that number, that's not just a statistic, it dictates the entire future growth of the market.
That one fact should stop any global operator in their tracks. This isn't a mature market, it is a future market. How is that youth concentrated?
It is extremely bottom-heavy. The 0 to 14 age group is a staggering 43% of the population.
43%.
And the 15 to 24 group is another 21%. So this massive cohort is the immediate and future growth segment for iGaming as they get older and, crucially, get access to phones.
The market is basically defined by anticipation.
That's a good way to put it.
But we have to balance that huge potential with the economic reality. We said the GDP is only $3.2 billion, and with an annual per capita income of just $280. How can the analysis possibly support a 12% DAGR? Or that ARPU jump from $12 to $18 a month? That feels like a huge leap of faith.
It's not faith. It's rooted in the profound income inequality that the analysis captures.
Oh, okay.
While the average is low, the top 20% of households capture nearly 60% of the total income. So discretionary spending on betting, it's not spread out. It is heavily concentrated among young urban males with above-average incomes.
So the addressable market is small, but its spending habits are disproportionately high.
Exactly. The source suggests sports betting really appeals to this demographic, often with small, very frequent bets. So while current revenues are under $5 million, that 12% growth projection relies on two things: the expansion of that wealthy youth group and seamless digital payments that make microtransactions easy.
So the jump from $12 to $18 ARPU isn't about getting more users, it's about getting more frequent bets from the same high-value users.
Precisely.
But that growth is totally dependent on connectivity. So let's talk tech. We've got only 23% internet penetration, and average broadband speed is about 5 million EPs. What does a 5 million EP ceiling mean for a company building a platform?
It means mobile first isn't just a best practice, it's a rigid engineering mandate. You cannot rely on high-def graphics or bulky apps or heavy live streaming.
It's just not going to work.
It'll fail.
Yeah.
The entire user experience has to be ruthlessly optimized for low bandwidth. We're talking SMS functionality for alerts, lightweight apps under 5 megs, and platforms that can handle constant connection drops. Any operator who fails to design for the 5 Mbps user will fail, period.
That just dictates your entire product design from the ground up. And what about the actual payment rail? We know banking penetration is terrible. Only 15% of adults have bank accounts. So how are transactions even handled?
And this right here is the absolute critical point. This is what enables that leapfrog scenario we talked about.
Right.
Traditional credit cards, bank transfers, they're complete non-starters. The market relies overwhelmingly on mobile money solutions like MTN Mobile Money. They have high penetration, and they just bypass the formal banking system entirely.
You just load money onto your phone and that's your wallet.
That's your wallet. So an operator's biggest technical challenge isn't connecting to Visa or MasterCard. It's building a flawless, low-friction integration with those mobile money providers.
Right. If that integration is clunky or slow.
You lose the user instantly. That rapid, low-stakes betting behavior we talked about, it demands instant payment.
And what are they betting on once they get through the payments and the low speeds?
Sports betting dominates. Specifically, soccer. That's the key driver of emerging online activity. Consumer behavior shows these really short session times quick bets on a phone, which confirms sports betting is the natural entry point here.
So land-based lottery is still big, but the growth is all in mobile soccer betting.
That's where the future is.
Okay, let's move into Section 3 and focus on the financial framework and the entry strategy. We mentioned the 15% GGR tax. How does the rest of the tax structure look? Is that 15% rate still competitive when you add everything else in?
It's a multi-layered structure. The GGR tax is 15% for sports betting, casino, and poker. But it's important to note, lottery is taxed higher at 20%.
Okay.
Now, where it gets less competitive is the corporate income tax, which is set at 30% on profits.
30% corporate tax on top of 15% GGR. That's substantial. Does the source compare that to, say, Kenya or Tanzania?
It sort of implies that the 15% GGR rate is there to attract interest, but that 30% corporate rate is the government's guaranteed slice of the pie. It makes the overall effective tax rate quite high for an emerging market.
So operators have to be exceptionally efficient to stay profitable.
Exactly. You have to minimize your operational costs.
And what about the player? Are their winnings taxed?
Yes, winnings get a flat 10% withholding tax, and the burden is entirely on the operator, who has to deduct it at the source before paying out.
Which requires some robust internal accounting system.
Absolutely. You have to be 100% compliant with the National Gambling Board.
Okay, and before we wrap strategy, let's touch on advertising. How free is an operator to market to this young, digitally engaged audience?
There are really strict controls. They're designed to protect vulnerable people. Advertising is limited to approved channels, mostly licensed venues and radio. They're avoiding widespread digital ads where minors could be exposed.
And the content itself.
It's also restricted. There's an outright ban on targeting minors, and you can't have any misleading or exaggerated claims about winning. Social responsibility is really baked into the marketing rules.
So if we bring all of this together, the regulatory ambiguity, the 5NOP speed limit, the mandatory local ownership, what does a smart entry strategy look like?
The main recommendation is to mitigate risk through localization. This means really emphasizing local partnerships, joint ventures, white label agreements to handle those ownership rules and just navigate the cultural landscape.
And the tech side.
Mobile money integration. As we said, it's absolutely non-negotiable. Without a seamless integration, you just can't access the mass market. Doesn't matter how good your product is.
And what should an operator budget for an initial entry like this?
Well, the initial costs are lower than mature markets, but still significant for what you get. The average setup costs, that's licensing, local office, the mobile money tech integration, initial marketing, it ranges between $250,000 and $500,000.
That's the price of admission.
That's the gatekeeping cost, yeah, before you even get to ongoing operational expenses.
So the core challenges are clear. The infrastructure, the regulatory gray area, the high effective tax rate, and being totally reliant on third-party mobile money providers.
Adaptability, patience, and really precise engineering. Those are the three pillars of success here.
Okay, let's try to synthesize the core takeaways from this deep dive.
The core tension is just undeniable, isn't it? Burundi offers this exciting demographic opportunity, a huge, young, digitally adopting population with massive growth potential.
But
it demands extremely careful navigation of infrastructure gaps and these evolving, ambiguous regulations. Any operator has to be prepared to work in that gray area for online licenses while maintaining, best-in-class compliance.
And the analysis really highlights that success is going to hinge on highly localized partnerships, a really efficient mobile-first design philosophy that's engineered for low bandwidth, and just scrupulous adherence to compliance rules, KYC, AML, all of it. This market is for the patient, technologically specialized player who's willing to invest in deep localization.
It is high risk.
Right.
But for those who get the strategy right, that 12% CAGR projection suggests a potentially high reward once the market matures and the infrastructure finally catches up.
Okay, so let's leave you with one final thought to chew on.
Yeah.
We have this current state of infrastructure, right? We're talking about a really low 5 megabit per second average speed.
It's a crawl.
It's a crawl. And you've got these tiny 5G pilot projects that are just in Bujumbura. So
Yeah.
here's the question. Is that slow pace of infrastructure deployment going to be a hard cap on that 12% growth we talked about? Or will the complete dominance of mobile money just let iGaming leapfrog the whole broadband problem entirely? It's really the battle of the payment rail versus the data pipe.
And the outcome of that battle is going to define profitability for the next decade. It's the ultimate test of payment infrastructure versus data connectivity in the digital frontier.
Thank you for sharing your source material with us for this deep dive. For the full text of this and other country reports, visit our website at gamblingdatabases.com.